See, now hypergamy has been something that everybody understands, everybody knows for the most part. If you don't know what that is, you got to read the book. Rational Male is a really, really good book. It is a red pill book, but it's probably one of the best books that I've come across when it comes to things like this, that's very balanced and makes a lot of sense. But I've experienced a lot of nuances when it comes to hypergamy. It's not as simple as most men like to think. A lot of men like to say, oh, it's all about looks, money, status. The guy that has the most looks, the most money, the most status, if he has those, he's going to always win the woman. And it's like, and he's always going to be at the top of the food chain. And it's like, from a male perspective, yes, right? From the male gaze, yes. But it doesn't always equate to the female gaze, because women are very, very different, right? And women think in very different ways that sometimes makes them seem unpredictable. But when you understand what I'm about to say, they'll be a lot more predictable, and you'll start to understand how you position yourself if you're in the dating market right now, or even with the woman that you have now. Because the thing is, hypergamy will always exist, right? You're always going to be in competition with other men. Just because you lock a woman down doesn't mean that she's essentially going to stay with you forever, right? You always have to be evolving as a man, and you have to be evolving rapidly for yourself, right? But also to make so that she's ensured that she has the best pick in the market for what she wants. So that goes into the point, right? We talk about female hypergamy, but there's two sides of it. I've experienced female hypergamy, and I've also been the guy who has created, or not created, but has done male hypergamy. Nobody talks about male hypergamy, but let's talk about female hypergamy. So I've been the guy who's been left for another guy that honestly didn't look better, wasn't more muscular, didn't even have more money, none of that, right? And it left me confused. And I've also been the guy who has been chosen from a guy who didn't have all of that type of stuff, right? So I've went on both sides, being the guy who gets chosen in hypergamy and the guy who gets left behind in hypergamy throughout my dating experiences, right? And what I've noticed, there's one story I have, man. There was one woman that I was talking to, right? And I would say that we were dating. We were like on and off, right? But I noticed something that was interesting. When she ended up leaving the, not relationship, but the situationship. I've had a good amount of situationships. The next guy that she chose was not good looking, at least from my perspective, and maybe even from her perspective. He didn't have much muscle at all. And he wasn't rich. He didn't have money. And it left me confused, because I was an ambitious guy that was working hard, that was making money, that was going to the gym, that, you know, looks okay, right? Looks good enough. But there was none of those things that that guy was able to have more than I did. But what I also realized is women value different things, which creates their own version of hypergamy in their head. The fact that, like, we blanket statement this whole entire hypergamy thing as women only want looks, money, and status, we forget the idea of women also want a specific archetype of a man, and the highest archetype wins, right? The guy who's at the highest tier of that archetype wins. So when we talk about like the ruler archetype, which is essentially what Red Pill talks about, looks, money, status, right? And influence, of course. But there are women who want the outlaw, right? There are women who want the jester, the guy who jokes around all the fucking time and makes her feel good. The ruler's always busy doing work. The ruler's grinding. The ruler's ambitious. The jester just likes to have fun. The outlaw doesn't give a fuck about status or any of that. He's just on his own. He's adventurous. He does what he wants, etc. And when I was going through that process and I saw, like, man, this guy doesn't have the things that I thought, but what he did have was free time. What he did have was being funny and being somebody who just joked around, like a little too much, in my opinion, from what I knew about him, a little too much. But that's what the woman wanted. That was the top of her hypergamy ladder. That was the best option she wanted. She didn't care about provisioning as much, right? At least during that point in time. Who knows how that changes over time? But what I noticed is a lot of women will choose up based on a certain archetype that they're attracted to the most. So for you, you have to identify what is the archetype that is dominant in me, right? And then you have to realize, how do I become the greatest version of that archetype for myself? because the women who are attracted to that archetype will automatically be attracted to you, right? So that's female hypergamy in a more advanced way. It's more archetypes. It's not just flatline provisioning, providing. That's like caveman shit, which is true, right? It's true at a base level, but there are nuances to it that I started to understand. Now, I've also been on the side where I was chosen before the other guy. And the reason why was because, again, I had that archetype, and my archetype, I would say I'm more like a ruler outlaw type. You know what I mean? I'm more of like a ruler outlaw, or like a king outlaw type. Like, I'm very, very brash. I'm very, very just like, I do whatever the fuck I want. Don't really like following rules and shit like that. I bend rules. I do not illegally, of course, but legally, I don't fit the mold, right? I don't fit specific molds. And there are women who find that very, very attractive, right? They see you doing something completely different from what they've already seen, you know, like the ruler archetype as well. I also have the lover archetype, which is another one where I can be very romantic, but I also understand how to strategically do it. There are women who just fall in love with guys who are super romantic, but not romantic in like that stupid way to where you're just chasing validation, but like you truly feel the woman and the woman truly feels you, and you can create strong connections with them. There are women who want that. They don't give a fuck about the money. They just want to find somebody who is literally that, the pinnacle of that archetype. Now, when it was the reverse, again, I was noticing the same thing. That type of woman wanted somebody who, for a lack of a better word, looked really good, or again, I'm not bragging about myself, nothing. I'm just going off of what she was saying, right? Who looks a certain way, let's say a certain way, who obviously is financially stable and also has a potential for growth, and also wanted somebody who had muscle, right? Who was in a good shape. I cleared all of those, right? And another nuance that you have to understand is that hypergamy also is based on potential. You have to realize that it's all based on potential as well. But realize potential, quickly realize potential. You can't be the guy who has potential forever. Because if you're the guy who has potential forever, that means you're a fucking loser. That actually is worse than a loser. Because a loser may not even have potential. He's just like living. He doesn't have anything he's good at. Doesn't have any flashes of greatness. Fine. But if you have potential, you have flashes of greatness, you have things that you have inclinations for to be good at, then you're worse than a fucking loser if you don't realize that potential. Because all you have to do is put in the work and try. So women will start to see potential if you demonstrate flashes of potential. That will be attractive to them because they see the long term. So they go for the man who has that long-term potential that they get in early with, that they see is working towards something. Some women are smart. Some women are also dumb as fuck and they don't care about that and they want to wait till the finish line and then they want monogamy. You can't have that shit. If I'm at the finish line, there is no monogamy. There's none. And that goes to my next point. Male hypergamy, right? We just talked about female hypergamy. Very, very basic shit, but a little advanced at the same time. Gave you a different perspective. Male hypergamy, I've experienced this shit viscerally. And I know this is how a lot of men think, but nobody's ever chose, at least from what I've seen, to explain this the way that I'm going to explain it. Male hypergamy is essentially choosing a woman based on gradual submissiveness. And submissiveness is not a bad thing, allowing for you to be a leader. A woman based on beauty, right? Long-term beauty, and being able to withhold that or being able to transform and be more beautiful over time, right? And now we're talking about potential. And also a woman that brings value into their life, the woman that brings the most value. And again, just like female hypergamy, male hypergamy is all subjective to what that man wants, what type of archetype of a woman that man wants. Some men want to go after the woman who is making the most money. I don't understand why, but they want that shit. So their form of male hypergamy is go after the woman who gets the most money. I think that's a feminine trait, by the way. If you're just looking at women who makes the most money, I want a sugar mama and shit, like you're a fucking bum, right? But the reality is there are men who want that. And there are men who also are looking for women who will submit to them and comfort them and aid them in their journey. These are typically hyper ambitious men. The type of men who want women who want more money over time are typically bums. typically guys who have nothing going for them, and they need to latch onto a woman who's more competent than them. Men who are super ambitious aren't looking for a woman that makes a lot of money. They're looking for a woman that can be molded to suit their mission, not just to suit themselves, but suit their mission. A woman that will, take care of the house. A woman that has the ability to get it on her own, but understands that if she's in the presence of a man who is competent, who is able to get her the resources, she will submit to that man. That is male hypergamy. And the thing is, the reason why a lot of men are looking for younger women over time is because those women tend to have less baggage. They tend to go through less traumas and they have less relationships that get fucked up with men. It's not just about their body count, fellas. That's fucking entry level. It's mostly about the experiences they've had in life that have shaped their character. That's male hypergamy. The least amount of bad experience. I want the woman with the least amount of bad experiences. So you have cavemen who are like, I want to be with 18-year-olds and shit like that. I think that's fucking stupid, right? Because you as a grown man, if you're in your 40s, 50s, or even late 30s, or even 30s in general, you're with a woman who's in her fucking teens, bro, that there's an insecurity on your side. And there's also a lack of awareness to understand that she will start to change over time for good and bad. And that doesn't necessarily have to do with you. That has to do with her worldview. But again, this goes back to my point. Male hypergamy is all about how can I find the most submissive woman, which all of these traits women can do. They're not hard. Like, for example, looks. You can't change that shit. You can change it, but you can't completely change your face, right? Your facial structure is your facial structure. Right? There's some people, they won't make tens of millions of dollars, so they won't get to the top. Men aren't looking for women who are at the top. They're looking for women who can almost compliment them. The woman who compliments him the best. So as he gets older, he stops dealing with the bullshit of the arguments all the time, all of that, and he looks for women who are more submissive. This is what I've done in my life. I've gotten to a point where in the beginning, I was dealing with a lot of bullshit. I was dealing with the headaches. I was dealing with the arguments. I was dealing with that shit daily. And then as I got older, as I got more mature, I was like, the minute I get headaches too often, I'm out. I don't give a fuck. That's male hypergamy, right? Now I got to go for the woman, the next woman that provides me with a sense of peace. If you want to know the actual thing for male hypergamy, it's peace. That's number one. If you can give a man peace and pleasure, of course, you're at the top of the fucking hierarchy for hypergamy as a woman to men. You're at the top. Tell me if I'm wrong, fellas. Like, you want that. You want a woman that's just peaceful, that isn't always fussing and having a fit all of it. You want peaceful women. So as you get older, as you have more experience, as you have more disposable income, you don't take a lot of shit because you know who you are. You know who you are and you know exactly who it is that you need to attract to get the life that you want. That's male hypergamy. Women, it's the opposite, right? They look for older men. They look for men in their 30s. The thing is, some of them say, I only look for age. No. It's not age. You're looking for a sense of maturity and a sense of a guy who has his life in order. So a lot of younger women will look for older men because they have their life in order. So they feel like they can fall into that man's world, right? The man who basically can build a world is at the top of that whole hypergamy shit. And that world just depends on what the woman is attracted to the most. Some women, looks don't necessarily mean much to them. Believe it or not, fellas. There's some women, looks don't mean that much to them. It's your charisma. It's how funny you are. Shit like that. You could be fat as fuck. Now, again, over time that can change, right? But there's some women like that. There's millions of women in this world. There's some women that's how much money you got in your pockets. I would stay away from those as much as possible, right? There's some women, it's just who you are as a person. Like who are you loving? Are you caring? Shit like that. That's what they care about the most, right? And that's the biggest thing about hypergamy that I finally understood is like it's different from male and female. Nobody talks about male hypergamy. It's true. We look for the most, not even completely submissive, because sometimes that can feel like you're dealing with a retard. Lack of better words. You want somebody who can think, at least for me, I'm not going to say you. For me, I've always wanted somebody who can think on her feet, has some level of good intelligence, can take action on certain things that I need her to do. Like my wife, she helps me with my business. She helps me with a lot of shit. She helps me move around here in Romania, talking to people, setting up contracts, setting up shit for like fights and like kickboxing fights in different countries and shit. She's an asset to my life, and she also brings peace. She doesn't argue very much. I mean, all women will go through that point where they go through their hormones and they have an argument, but that shit lasts for like 5 minutes. And we're back to normal, you know? So I've seen that in my relationship where that's what I want, that's what I need, right? I'm not looking for argument, but I also need a certain level of intelligence. So when I say submissiveness, I say, you know that I'm the leader. You know that I will make the decisions that will help both of us, not just for me, for both of us. I don't want a woman that's headbutting with me. I've never liked that. I've had relationships like that. I've had situationships like that. It's fucking headbutting left and right. It doesn't work for me, right? So my version of hypergamy, male hypergamy, is the woman that brings the most peace. Obviously the woman that I'm attracted to the most, which peace comes with that attraction. And the woman that has capability to handle shit. That's all I need as my version of male hypergamy. Yours can be completely different. A woman's version of female hypergamy can be very different as well. It's why you see a guy like Tom Brady get cheated on by a fucking trainer. Because maybe that trainer had a different archetype that she found was the top and not Tom Brady's archetype, which was the ruler, which was the king, right? Guy who's making money, the guy who's a high achiever. Maybe she wanted an outlaw. Maybe she wanted, and again, you have to understand what archetype does that woman go for. And the best way you can do this is understanding her past. Because a woman's past can tell you a lot. A man's future can tell you a lot about him. A woman's past can tell you a lot about her. How a man sees his future, you can tell how that man's going to be. For a woman, how her past was, the patterns of the type of guy she was with. You can start to see what patterns there were. And it's not just about were those guys fat? No. What were their demeanors? How did they approach life? And how are you the evolution of that? And if you're not the evolution of that, you're fucked. But that's why we work on ourselves, fellas. For ourselves and to make sure that we are always in our woman's fantasy. But again, you don't get with a woman whose fantasy does not match your potential. Ever. That's where you fuck up with hypergamy. You fuck up when you realize that when you get with a woman and then later realize that her fantasy, because hypergamy is all about fantasies. When a woman sees that a man's future or a man's outcome in life doesn't match the fantasy that she had for the life that she wanted with a man, she will start to subconsciously find a man who fits that fantasy. Which is why women will cheat on guys with other guys that you're just like, why the fuck would you do that? Because that was her fantasy to begin with. But you have to go through this, and I'm going to put together a whole entire course around like how you can fucking figure out what a woman's fantasy is. How you can actually vet women to figure out if they're right for you. Because a lot of men don't know how to do this. They look at a woman, they're like, she's beautiful, she got a fat ass, she got some nice titties and shit like that. She's slim, she looks good, boom, done, right? They don't get down to the surface. They don't understand what her motivations are. They don't understand anything. And they get fucked. I spent time with my wife figuring out what her fantasies were. Flawlessly. And when I figured out, oh shit, I match it, bet. Let's take this a little bit further, right? Talking stage to dating. Then I wanted to see that fantasy play out and the consistency play out. And once the consistency was enough for me to realize that the mask is off, this is who she really is, which was amazing. Boom, cool, we're good, we're locked in. Wife, right? Nothing's changed since. Literally nothing. There's some women, they get married and they just turn into fucking demons. Fortunately for me, I was able to vet very, very well. And that's what I want you to do. But you have to understand hypergamy at this more advanced level. There's a layer to this shit. There's layers. You may have learned basic hypergamy, the caveman version of hypergamy. But the gold pill is advanced hypergamy. It's matching archetypes. It's understanding fantasies that women hold and seeing where you fit in that fantasy. And if you don't, you withdraw from the relationship or the conversation. Now you're playing life on easy mode. That's a cheat code to the game of dating. You understand archetypes and shit like that. Very, very important. And what archetypes are attractive to what types of women. That shit will save you years of headaches. So I hope this was valuable for you. I have all my courses, paid courses. I have my free mindset course in there as well that you can check out. Links will be in the description. My YouTube growth course as well that guys have been seeing crazy results in. I'm putting together a mentorship around female dating and relationships. Right? I've gotten too many DMs about men asking me about women trying to decode their current relationships, trying to understand how they need to navigate, trying to attract higher quality women, what I call elite feminine women. There are a lot of guys who are asking me those questions. I don't give fitness questions anymore, which is great because that shit, like, bro, if you haven't watched all of my videos and gotten in shape by this time, you were never gonna make it, right? Or watch any other person's videos. Fitness is easy. Dating is fucking hard. And that's where I believe I can provide a lot of value to you guys, all right? So that mentorship link will be in the description if you want to apply. It will be closed off. It will only be for a certain amount of men. I'm thinking about running it in cohorts every month or so. But it's going to be crazy. It's going to help you guys a lot because I'd like to believe that I have the outcome that a lot of men want innately, right? I don't have a harem of women. I never wanted that. But I'm hoping that my audience, you want a solid woman that is adding value to your life and is peaceful. One, right? That's what you want. I can help you get that, right? And if you just want to get into the dating scene and you want to understand women a bit better and you want to navigate that flawlessly, that's also a part of it. So I hope that was helpful for you, and I'll catch you on the next video.